yeah, it was fear and awe, and it was like a bunch of things all next to each other.
So I'm going to bring this to guns. Okay.
Okay,
And,
great.
and,
Let's
and
go,
the
dude.
reason why is this is a feeling I get. So when I'm, I don't have a gun, but my dad, I grew up around guns. My dad had guns. And when I go to visit him, we go shooting, we go to the pistol range or wherever we go shooting. But when I hold a gun in my hand, I'm just in the back of my mind, I'm going, yeah, this is a tool. This is something man made, all that stuff. At the same time, I'm going, this can take the life of somebody with minimal effort. I mean, that's going through my mind. I'm not just seeing it as a tool. I use a kitchen knife. I don't think that. I use yeah. I don't think that when I'm driving a car, but when I'm holding a gun, that thought is in the back of my mind. It's present all the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hands On Logos podcast. This is where we discuss current events, personal growth, and any other random topic that crosses our minds. Our goal is to have a meaningful discussion that help us to see the topics we discuss more clearly. Our hope is we can help you expand your self-awareness, develop your critical thinking, and learn to be less reactive to the world around you. And most importantly, remember, be curious. If you like what you hear, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any feedback, please leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. We appreciate you.
Let's get started.
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
roll.
Chris. Guess what
What?
day it is, Chris? It is
It
Friday
is
podcast day.
Podcast Friday. That's right.
And we've got our most important guest ever. Not that the other ones weren't important, but this one is extra special. This is
That's correct.
Coach B, and we have gone recruiting at Toastmasters. And so eventually we'll probably bring all of our Toastmasters friends on. So welcome, Coach B. We are so excited to have you here. And
Awesome. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
yeah, and just so you know, you can leave anytime you want. There's really hardly any rules. The oh, yeah, exactly. You're right. The only rule we're trying to impose, and we haven't had great luck, is we're just trying to avoid any kind of real serious cussing. I don't know. I guess we're just trying to clean our act up a little bit. So
That's the hard part, but that's all right. I'll do my best.
okay. All right. So let's get started. So Coach B, do you think you could give a little introduction about yourself?
Oh, let's see, a wee bit of introduction. So I'm not getting checked off for that, by the way, am I? Since we're all toasting. Just a second.
No, we get lots of ums and ahs on ourselves on this
Really?
one. We're not
Gotcha.
pleasing ourselves on this.
All right, gotcha. Well, my name is Brian. Last name is Burdick. I have been a United States Marine. Southern California local law enforcement. Been a Toastmaster for about 6 years. I've coached probably every sport I can think of growing up. I played a lot of sports. I was an ice hockey goalie for 15 years. I competed as a kid in junior ROTC. I actually lettered in rifle team, in rifle drill team, in high school, those kind of things. Got my first gun when I was 8 in growing up in Indiana, which is really weird these days. People don't understand what that means, and then how we would take guns to school, but to take to the rifle range that was at school. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just a different world. But spent a lot of time in martial arts as well. Had a karate school for about 25 to 30 years, and I coached locally here at St. John Bosco in wrestling as a what I call the head coach, the mental coach, and helping people find ways to win and achieve what they were trying to achieve. So I think that's it in a nutshell. College degree in coaching, self-development, and leadership. That's a little bit about me.
Wow, that is awesome. So where do we want to go today? I mean, there's so many topics we could start with, you know? Chris, do you have any ideas where we want to go?
Well, one thing that so Brian gives a lot of speeches at Toastmasters. Sometimes he'll do
Mhm.
impromptu ones. Sometimes he'll have ones that he's planned out, and I can tell he speaks a lot to groups of people, probably at work, but also in some of the other things he does. And quite often he'll get emotional or very vulnerable when he's speaking, which is a skill that I think we should all get really good at because it really helps to connect with the audience when you're doing that. But the one the one speech that I remember that I think I'd like you to talk about a little bit was about motivation versus, I forgot what the other word was, but it's basically fear, right? Do you run, running from the lion versus going after something, right? And I forgot the
Right.
term
It's
you
like,
used, but I just the concept of what really motivates us. Is it going after something or running away from something?
gotcha. Love it. I think if I recall correctly, the speech that I did on motivation was motivation versus inspiration.
Yes,
Like you could be
that sounds right.
motivated to run from a tiger, or you could be inspired to run from a tiger. They're both leading
Yep.
you kind of in the same direction in a sense. But a lot of these spawned from the leadership that I got I'm going to say as a teenager, and then also in the Marine Corps was, they're very definitive about a lot of what they would call traits, and I would say that some are traits and some are qualities, and it just depends on how important it is to you. But when you think of like motivation is really things that you want to achieve. Inspiration definitely exists, but inspiration has to find you working towards what you're trying to achieve. So I think the difference is do you get up in the morning and you're looking around to make sure that the lion's not going to chase you, or do you get up in the morning and you're looking to chase what you're trying to accomplish and be in the sense being the lion? Do I need breakfast, or do I need to avoid being breakfast in a sense? It just depends on where you're at in your life and what your motivations are, or what your needs are, your personal needs. Which I'm going to say this: personal needs get real basic. If you think about it psychologically, they say that the most three basic human needs have always been food, shelter, clothing, and in those comes the safety in life. So those are generally the things that motivate us, and then you can see how those integrate into where we're at in our lives these days because things function different. We're not in the million year old brain, but we are living in a modern society. So the things that we work to achieve and the things that we work to gain, albeit filter into food, shelter, clothing, there's a little bit more to it than that these days. So that's the short version. I don't know if you got something you want to drill down on.
Oh, boy, I got a bunch of things in my mind to drill down on. One, just a side story. I think I was at was it this wild animal park or the San Diego Zoo?
Mm,
I can't remember which one. This is a
love
long
it.
time ago. And there was like a lion. And, we see lions, but there was it was like a chain link fence or something. And I got to like hang out right next to this lion, literally less than a foot away from this lion. And
Wow.
that was the most awesome and scary experience ever. And he was just hanging out in the sun and just doing his thing or whatever. But I saw his paws. I mean, literally, his paws were like as big as my hands, and his I mean, to me, I don't know if they're this big. They seem like a foot long, like what do they call it, the claws and everything.
Right.
And I'm like, I understand why this thing's the king of the beast now. I mean, literally, if he could have got through me, he could have killed me with one swipe. I mean, the difference in power was phenomenal. And I don't know if you've ever been to something but it powerful before, but man, it was an experience. It was just awesome.
No, absolutely. I totally understand why you'd say that because that's one swipe. That's just imagine that just clinching, just getting those claws in, and even on a slow clinch, that would just take the life from you easily.
Yeah, yeah, it is crazy. So I just I don't know what that means. I just wanted to share that
I, you say
experience.
that, and I think of it. What it means to me is that it's a level of fear I don't think most human beings have experienced these days. Like we just don't fathom being in a situation where we could take a swipe from a lion or an animal that size with that kind of death dealing ability.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And then but we are still king of the beast actually, because we could go after that guy with a helicopter and a high-powered machine gun, and we could just mow down hundreds of them with zero risk to ourselves because of our brains. And it's just weird to think of them, tools and logic and thinking and science, how we can sort of become the king of the beast without having the actual real power there, whatever that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I want to bring up something as you were talking about, kind of the fear or the recognition of the strength of the animal when you were there.
yeah, it was.
What
Let me. yeah, it was fear and awe, and it was like a bunch of things all next to each other.
So I'm going to bring this to guns. Okay.
Okay, great.
And,
Let's
and
go
the
good.
reason why is this is a feeling I get. So when I'm, I don't have a gun, but my dad, I grew up around guns. My dad had guns. And when I go to visit him, we go shooting, we go to the pistol range or wherever we go shooting. But when I hold a gun in my hand, I'm just in the back of my mind, I'm going, yeah, this is a tool. This is something man made, all that stuff. At the same time, I'm going, this can take the life of somebody with minimal effort. I mean, that's going through my mind. I'm not just seeing it as a tool. I use a kitchen knife. I don't think that. I use I don't think that when I'm driving a car, but when I'm holding a gun, that thought is in the back of my mind. It's present all the time. And so it's not quite the same thing as being around a lion, but I think there's it forces me to respect how I have to treat that weapon because I know it's a weapon versus, yeah, when I got a kitchen knife, I don't really acknowledge it as a weapon. It really is just a tool in my head.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, I grew up with guns. I mean, I was shooting guns 6 years old, and I've had guns pretty much my whole life. And I mean, I don't have any real feeling about. I mean, it's just a tool. It's just a thing. It's like, yeah, you could, I could probably kill more people with a car than I could with a handgun, I suppose. But I just don't think of it in those terms. But man, let me tell you something. Guns freak people out. People that haven't been exposed to guns, they are like, they get freaked out. Now, I was in California near you guys because we were in the club physically together. But when I moved to Arkansas, Arkansas is a different place. We like our guns here in Arkansas. There's guns everywhere. In fact, every time I go out, maybe not every time, but more than half the time, if I go to a restaurant or something, I will see people carrying guns. I mean, people carry everybody's got a gun here. And I know when I first came back here to Arkansas, and you can carry them around. You don't need any license or anything. You just as long as you're not a felon, you can just concealed carry it, and it's just a whole different thing. And people I openly carry, and then a lot of times you can see the printing. They won't be concealing it that well or whatever. You can kind of see the shape of it. And at first it freaked me out a little bit, but now it's just whatever. It's a gun. It's so yeah. I don't know. That's just some comment I have about it, but yeah, that's definitely something that freaks people out is guns.
I think of two things. You brought up the being able to take a helicopter and shoot them with a rifle and all that. I had recently found this post and I reposted it to a group that I'm in, trying to motivate people to not, don't forget that you're capable of doing something and taking action. And so this meme is a couple of cavemen with spears faced off with a saber-toothed tiger. And it says, your ancestors were able to take on this animal with sticks.
Yeah.
Don't forget who you are. Start acting like it.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
right.
wow. And think about that. The reason that we were able to, there's an article, and I forget whether it was in like National Geographic or in Time magazine, but there's this article about how human beings got to where they're at. And the bottom line was collaboration. They all worked together to gain and achieve, because I do think one person by themselves could take on a lion or a tiger and kill it. I think that is absolutely possible, and I'm sure that's happened somewhere in human history at some point. But
Wait,
what made it
without
easier,
a gun? Without a gun?
just a stick, just at the caveman level with a spear.
Oh, okay. I
Well,
wouldn't want to be that guy.
so it's still with a weapon, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
would
still
think
with a
it's a
weapon
disadvantage, but
and
the idea
circumstances.
being
We're not.
this thing here is one thing that we have that they don't have, the animal doesn't have. So it's not
Right.
physical strength wise. You're not going. You're not mano a mano. What feline to a mano? What is it?
Oh,
So,
no
Right.
way.
Right. But I
No,
mean,
but I
it's
think
also
is it gato a mano? So anyway,
but they're also not stuck. I mean, it's circumstances. Like if you're in a wide open area and you don't have a tree to use as some cover to put between you and the animal, and it's just you and it's open in a spear, it's going to be a lot more difficult than if you're in a position where, I don't know if you guys saw the movie The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and one of the Baldwins. he's a rich billionaire. They get in a small plane crash in the mountains of Alaska, and they've got to survive. And this bear ends up eating one guy, and then later, a couple days later, attacking Baldwin in oh my God, Anthony Hopkins. And so Anthony Hopkins was a reader of information on how people survive these. So he describes it as that they have to get the bear to arch up and come after him, and that they have this spear and they wedge the spear against like the ground or the rock. So when the bear comes down to attack him, it's the bear's weight on the spear that kills him, not the guy spearing the guy.
He impales
So
himself.
that's why I say, yeah, absolutely. So I just say it's situationally, like you said, this helped us figure out how to do it, but we had to make sure those circumstances coalesced together to make sure that it worked right.
And someone still had to
that's what
stand there and face the tiger too. It wasn't just like, I can do all the thinking I want, but at some point somebody's got to stand in front of that tiger.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know what comes to your guys' mind, but in my mind, I'm thinking, what's the state, the physical state that has got to have fear and also have just a little bit more courage than fear in that moment to be like, I got this. Just if you just, like it's die or win. Like at that point, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that we're here today means our ancestors were the ones who were able to do that. The ones who couldn't, they didn't survive, right? So
Strong ones lived. Yeah.
Those lineages ended on those days.
actually, that's a good way to look at it. We all come from stock that survived the hardest time, so obviously they were the strongest. And if you just look at it from that way, no matter how weak you feel today, you always come from the stock that survived, which means you come from a successful line.
Oh my gosh, we've come
No,
from
I'm not
greatness.
recommending specking. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What was that?
Scott?
I said we've come from greatness.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so don't go smacking around now going, hey, be strong.
No. Well, no. I think it's a good motivational thing, though. If you really look at it, the fact that we're alive today meant our ancestors survived the crap they survived.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. I sorry to do this, but I love jiu-jitsu. I talk about jiu-jitsu all the time. And I want to let you know that I'm really bad at jiu-jitsu, and I'm only a blue belt, which is like the first belt you get. And of blue belts, I'm probably like the worst blue belt in existence, actually. So just that frames it. But, and it took me like 5 years to get a blue belt because I suck so much. But the cool thing about I learned so much from jiu-jitsu, and one thing I learned is that technique, if you have a certain technique, you can overcome a certain amount. You can defeat a stronger opponent with a certain amount of technique, as long as you know more than he does. But there's a limit. It's like it's not unlimited in power. Like I was thinking about like trying jiu-jitsu on an 800-pound gorilla, and the gorilla doesn't need any technique. He just grabs you and just literally rips your arm out of your socket, right? He doesn't need jiu-jitsu. But I wonder, like in martial arts, I don't know, I guess we're going here now. How big of an opponent, I mean, how much advantage does that give you? I mean, like, I don't think martial arts would work on a lion per se, right?
you mean like on the street or something like that? If you met someone on the street, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I've learned, and this has obviously got some military in it, some police in it, and some martial arts in it, and then just some basic human survival. I've always taught the most important technique anybody can learn or know simply is just awareness. Just know what's going on around you, right? That's the bare bone basic. Then by repetition of techniques, and I say this from the attitude of a concept called Kaizen, meaning you're always working to get better. You've never finished or never accomplished. You've always got to keep working. I think that's basically right. Would you say, Chris?
Always improving, yeah.
Yeah, always improving. So with that, you're always trying to improve what you've learned, and it's this web that's just, one technique leads, I can go 5 different places. And that technique leads me here, here, here. And as soon as I get to that, I get to this new base. And then that new base takes me 5 different places, or whatever the number is. It's exponential. but it'll always lead you back to something that you know, and you just find yourself, maybe you're doing something, you're, oh my God, I'm right here. And it could be ground fighting, jiu-jitsu, or stand-up jiu-jitsu. It could be, aikido, karate, judo, does not matter. You'll find yourself in a position you're familiar with. And if you've had enough repetitions, well, let me say this, if you've had enough repetitions, you've avoided it all in the first place.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the awareness rule number one. But
Yeah.
if you find yourself in a situation where you're not, then it comes down to like size, right? Or strength. So in training and having done everything and been beaten up and not being beaten up and doing the beating up, and everybody gets hit. I love a lot of the shows and all that show people like, oh, you'll never hit me. And then, guy gets hit. You're gonna get hit. It's physical, right? It's combative.
Yeah.
There's guys that are really good because they put in enough repetitions that they're less likely to get hit. But even the greats that I know have all taken some level of punch, but they've
Oh, yeah.
also been able to deflect some of that because of the same training. It's just kind of,
Yeah, get away from the brunt of it if you can, possibly. Right. Right, right,
Isn't
right.
that why a lot of
absolutely.
people didn't like Steven Seagal's fight scenes because he never got hit?
Yeah, I think it would make it better if he took a shot or two, because it would
I
let you
mean, the
know,
whole
okay,
idea.
yeah,
Usually, in your fight scenes, you want your good guy to take a little bit of a beating so he earns his win. But like Steven Seagal
right.
was just like never got hit.
Yeah, you can't. Well, I think some of that's, and I don't know about Steven Seagal. I don't know if I'm the expert to comment on it, but I would say characters like that may have an ego that's projected onto the screen where it's like, you can't hit me. I'm trying to make sales in the background here too. So, you know, but I did want to say this on the size. So here I am. I've got a technique that I've practiced. If it's jiu-jitsu, imagine being on the ground and there's a guy on top control, which means he's sitting on your waist and his knees are on the ground. And just for training purposes, he puts his hands on the ground, one on each side of your head. So you're sitting here and you're trying to arch up and buck him and roll him off.
Yeah.
And I had this guy Tony. He trained. He was friends with John McCarthy and some of these big name guys that ref, and then plus they were Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guys. I've trained with Joe Moreira, fantastic. These guys are all fantastic. And Tony would just get on top of it. He was such a beast. He would just be like, "All right, dude, technique," and I'd be like, and I'm like, "I'm trying." He goes, "Come on," It's literally like, "Stop being a little, whatever." And I'm like, he's just immovable. Some
Yeah.
people, can do that. So that's also why I say awareness plays into it, because I think the worst thing anybody could do is like, hey, never tell yourself you know something, because then you're apt to
Yeah.
try and use it on somebody who just isn't going to put up with it. I think a lot of people know a lot. And I think the majority, with martial arts becoming more than just a military art or a
Yeah.
village art to protect the village, and the masses now learning it, it's really a lot of sport that can be used to do some serious harm to people. Or you think you know what you're doing, and there's always somebody that knows a little bit more, and then they hand you your rear end and make it clear that you didn't practice enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember so my master, he was Alan Goes. He's like I miss that dude so much. And
Okay.
he would take me to Ruka sometimes, which is the clothing store, but they'd have the gym down in the bottom, and he would be there. He would like train different people. And I remember there was a guy that in his own right, I think he was like a second or third degree black belt. This guy was multi-time world champion, doing it for 20 years. And I know Alan was rolling with him, and he came back and like sat down and he put his head down like this, and he's like, I don't understand what just happened. I don't understand. I'm like a three-time world champion, like a third or second degree black belt. And Alan, was just toying with me. He was just playing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could have murdered me at any second, and there's nothing I could have done about it. And it's so interesting. So I always think there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah,
There's always
always
somebody
is.
that knows more than you do.
Right, right. Do you think some of that also comes into whether it be knowledge or skill, right? Because this is somebody like, if you think of expertise, it's the development of knowledge, training, and experience. So I
Yeah.
can, I can read books all day and watch movies all day, and I got knowledge and training down. I mean, yeah, knowledge and training down, right? But I need physical experience from actually doing some techniques in order to
Yeah.
be able to apply them. So
Yeah.
I say that because I think it comes down to the concept in they talk about it mostly in boxing, but if you think about it, it's really the concept of imposition of will. Who's going to impose their will on the other? So usually one is either lunch and the other one is the one eating lunch.
Yeah.
And you can usually tell. Watch two boxers get in the ring and they're waiting, and one guy's like, like something's going to happen. He's the lunch. Then the other guy that's in there's looking, he's like, yeah, I'm beat the snot. I mean, you can usually see those things. So I say that because I think there's people that get a level of skill. They have the awareness. They know what they're capable of. And it doesn't mean that you have to be better than somebody else. You just have to have the right mindset, the awareness going in that, okay, hey, this guy's a 3rd or 4th degree black belt. If I'm aware and I know some of what he's going to do, then all I have to do is do this. And this is a concept that I used to teach all the time, is like, you don't have to win. You just don't have to lose.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So I'm just not going to let you do what you're trying to do. I'm not saying that's the appropriate concept in life. I'm just saying that can be in a situation for a moment, is I'm not going to let this person do what they want to do. They're not going to gain anything in this moment. And it's just, I'm trying to keep a stalemate. Then if I see an opening, then I'm going to try and take advantage of it. So I say that in that these two guys, I'm imagining based on what you said, these two guys are rolling around, and the guy that's just doing what he wants is, one, he's imposing his will, while
Yeah.
at the same time he's not letting the other guy do what he wants. So it might be,
Yeah.
and I forget the concept off the top of my head, but it's constant contact, and you just let the other guy move around you, and your goal is just to stay on top. So you're creating space and then creating contact back and forth immediately, just to maintain a dominance, to not allow that person to accomplish. They're doing all the work. You're just kind of staying on top and moving with them. And as they wear down because they're burning all their energy, you're still fresh because you're just kind of staying in one spot and moving. And then,
Yeah, that's something about like so he would let me roll around with him every once in a while, and it was awesome. And
yeah, that's all.
I can't even explain it in my mind because you okay. So like in your mind, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and I'm bigger than him, and I'm gonna do that, and he has no chance,
Been
and
there,
all this sort of stuff, right? And the ego
been
is
there,
just
done that.
exploding out of your head, and then you start rolling around on the ground, and you're like, what is happening? It's like, I don't even know what is happening at this point. And
They're toying with you.
I'm going full blast. And I'm like, I'm just curious, like, tell me, like, what percentage level are you at? And he's like, I don't know, maybe 2%, 3%, maybe. And I'm like, bull crap, bull crap. And he's like, let me turn it up to 10%. And I'm like, okay, got it. You made your point. And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, there's people like that walking around that has, I mean, it's like, it just blows your mind about these. I don't even have words for it. You have to feel it because you're like, holy Toledo's.
Right.
This is wild, actually. And so what I learned about this and what I learned about being in Arkansas with tons of guns here is be nice to everybody because you don't know. You can't tell by looking at somebody what they know or what they can do or what they will do. I mean, you just
Or what
cannot
they're in
tell.
fear of. You
Yeah.
might be the quintessential character they're most in fear of, and you don't even know it. They're just, they're like being totally calm and cool, looking at you, just going step my direction, one step, and I'm taking a shot at you because you
Yeah.
scare the hell out of, and you have no idea that that's the effect you have on people, or that you may have.
Yeah.
Brian, hey
Yes,
Brian,
sir.
so when you're out on duty as a police officer and you walk up to somebody, what goes through your head? I mean, you said awareness is critical, but I mean, what kind of assessment, what are you thinking about, what are you watching as you walk up to a situation? And
Hmm.
even take a situation where you don't have any worry that anything's going to happen. I mean, what's going on in your head in a normal interaction?
If you knew what to look for, you would think that we are psychologically unsound and like just paranoid. If you knew what we're doing while we're doing it, you'd be like, what? Um, that's why I say awareness is the key. So when I teach, people ask me like, hey, I put on self-defense classes for if you can believe it, for women. I put them on for pharmacists. I put them on for pharmaceutical industry people. Like, hey, can you come teach us? We want to know how to. And I'm like, I can't teach you that in 3 hours or 4 hours.
Right.
I have to teach you what's going to help you survive.
Yeah.
So here's the basic course. I'll try and do it in a couple of minutes here real quick. So when I say awareness, it's, like, so I have a boxer dog, for example, and this is currently, and so I, obviously when I leave for work in the morning, I have a firearm with me. Well, when I exit my front door, nobody knows it because they can't see it, but my hand's on my firearm as I'm leaving my door. I've caused people that have murdered people to end up in jail for years. And in the back of my mind, there's a fear that they may have somebody come after me at some point. And everybody can be found. I don't care how, you got people shooting at Trump. Trust me, if they want to take a shot at you or try and take you out, they can. So I have this boxer dog that over time I've trained. She goes out front first. Now, I don't want anything to happen to my dog. I love this dog so much. She's so adorable. But she goes out first because if there's anybody out there, she's going to be like, engaged. So all I'm doing is just kind of creating myself a safe zone. And then as I go down the steps going outside, my hand's on my weapon so that I reduce my ability to, or I reduce my lag time so that if I do have to engage somebody, I can drop stuff and engage, take care of business, get my dog, get back inside, call for help.
Yeah.
So as I'm going outside, I usually get on the steps as the dog hits the sidewalk out by the front lawn, and I look left and right, and I look for something that I call avenues of escape and avenues of approach. They're usually the same thing. So it's where would I go if I had to escape something, and where would I go if I had to approach something, or where would somebody come from if they were trying to approach me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's on my mind as I'm approaching areas like you just asked the question, Chris. So that's the first thing. It's like, okay, let's say I'm rolling up to a street corner. I need to know what my location is. And I don't mean just intersection XY, right? I don't just mean, I'll say like a freeway, for example, the 605 and the 91 is nearby where I live. So that puts me near Cerritos. So let's just say South Street and Gridley, which is right next to the mall. If I'm going to be there, I don't just know that I'm at South Street and Gridley. I know what corner I'm closest to. The northeast corner, the southwest corner. I know exactly where I'm at. When I drive down the street, I'm driving westbound on South Street. I'm crossing Gridley. I'm driving westbound on South Street, approaching the 605. I'm driving westbound on South Street, approaching the next street over, which is Studebaker. I'm driving westbound. I'm now approaching Bellflower. That's going through my mind constantly because that's what I was trained to do, is know exactly where you're at, because if you need help, it just comes out when you're asking for it. You're not going, oh, where am I? Okay. So that's all still part of awareness. So now let's say that I'm pulling up on somebody and I'm at work, and let's say I'm working in a black and white police car and I'm in uniform. Next thing I'm looking for is where are the open windows and what windows are closed. If I'm out on a contact at a street corner, I'm on the southwest corner of, just say South Street in Gridley, for example, and I'm watching cars driving by. I'm looking at all the cars with windows down, because just 99% chance people are going to roll the window down to take a shot at you, right? If I'm looking at buildings, that have open windows, because nobody's going to shoot the glass out. They're just going to open the window. So I'm looking for what those are. While I'm on that corner, I'm looking at what's the most easy way to access me, that avenue of approach to me. And then I'm also looking, because I'm contacting a person, which way are they most likely going to run that's easiest for all of us? Like, that's the easiest route. They're going to pick that. Now, let's say I step out of the car and I'm going to engage this person. I'm like, hey, Chris, let me talk to you. I don't know that you're Chris, but first thing I'm looking at is their hands. And this is widely known throughout law enforcement, and it's shared within martial arts studios. If I'm going to do harm to you, I'm going to have something in my hand to do harm with you, right? Might be it's a pen, knife, whatever. Whatever's in my hand is going to get used as a weapon, because any weapon I'm going to use, I need these to use it. So that's the basics. And then the next thing is, like Scott was saying, in Arkansas, you can see the outline of stuff that people might have under their shirt. most of the time. You'd be amazed at where people are able to do stuff. We had a guy, we caught this gangster. He was wearing a belt up here, like 3 inches below his nipple line, right up high, 4 or 5 inches above his belly button. He was wearing a belt, and he had a gun there in a big baggy t-shirt. Never would have noticed it. Never noticed, right? But he followed our directions because we knew him to be a gangster, and when we went to take him into custody to, I say take him into custody. To be more correct, you have to build what's called reasonable suspicion, and then build probable cause to arrest. So I have reasonable suspicion to detain him because I know he's a gangster in a known gang area, in a known narcotics area, and I know him to have sold narcotics. So these things would be things that would do that. Then we detain him. He gets patted down like, this guy's got a gun on him, and it's in this belt that's up around his waist. So people can hide stuff all over, but we would look for those kind of things. So you're always checking hands, and then where's the most accessible place somebody's going to put a firearm or a weapon? Waist level, pockets, band pockets, belt line. So those are generally what gets it. The next thing is that to their ankles, because they're going to put it in their ankles, and like sock or something like that. So that's the basics of it. And then there's one more step that I would go. Not only am I in that street corner looking for avenues of approach and avenues of escape, but I'm looking for things that are known as concealment and or cover. Concealment conceals me but doesn't stop bullets. Cover stops bullets. So I did an anti-terrorism safety course for a group of people once, and I explained to them, I say, the curb is like 8 to 10 inches tall, and if somebody's shooting and you got no place else, lay down on the ground in the gutter of the street where you've got 8 to 10 inches of protection, which is better than what you had before, but that's what you got. And if bullets, are going to hit, they can glaze over that. I'd rather get skinned by one than actually penetrated, by a round that gets stuck in you. So you're looking at telephone poles, you're looking at big trees, you're looking at electrical boxes that are nearby. You might be looking at a doorway that has a 2 foot, 1 foot, 3 foot in, step inside before you get to the door. Those are all places you could jump to for cover. Cars, behind the engine block is better than being behind the trunk, but being behind a car, period, is better than being behind nothing. So that's the short version of that. But those are the things that can help.
I remember at my last company, we had an active shooter training.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation came up, what do you do if someone's in the building? What do you do if you're walking out of the building and you see someone walking up with a weapon or something like that? But when I was talking to the other employees later on, I was talking about, I had already figured out my fastest way out of that building years before. I said, this is the route I would take. These are the cubicles I would shortcut through, going over the cubicle walls if I had to, right?
Right.
These are the lines of sight to my desk from other people. I knew all of those already, not because I really thought it was going to happen, but I just wanted to be able to react quickly if there was ever a need. And there were a couple of scenarios. One was if I had to get away for some reason, like it was dangerous. The other was if there were actually a fire, then I would go a specific route that was what the company wanted done. But right. I mean, the fact that I thought about that, even when you go into a restaurant and do you sit with your back to the front door? Do you sit with your back to a wall? All those things sound paranoid, but they make me feel more comfortable when I know this is the space to think about. I don't have to think about this space behind me. So
right. Have you ever thought about when you go into a restaurant and all the guys have their back to the wall and all the ladies are sitting with their back to the door?
I've never paid attention, but is that what happens?
You're like, wow, everybody's doing it tonight. I mean, it just depends on where you're at.
So when I came back here as like a kid in a candy store is awesome, right? Because I had 1 or 2 guns in California, but most of them were acquired here. So when I went to the gun store, it was kind of cool because I'm like, okay, I want to buy a gun. I'm in Arkansas now, right? And so they do the background check and they do all this other sort of stuff. And the guy's like, and I'm like, okay, see you in a couple of weeks. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's like, you can take it right now, actually. I go, no. There's like a 2-week wait. And then
you got conditions.
And then he's like, where are you from? Where are you from, man? I'm from California. And everybody's like, oh, that explains it. It's so funny. People, outside of California, especially in Texas or Arkansas, they don't have the fondest views of Californians, actually.
No, that's why I always tell people I'm from behind enemy lines in California, and then they give me a wink like, I got you,
Yeah,
But
exactly. I know. The first time I took a gun class here, we were all going around and saying, "Where are you from?" And I'm from California, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, welcome to America!" You
right,
escaped the
free
You speak
America,
really good English, right?
it's like Red Dawn.
Well,
I'm
Gotta
like,
get
I
"Oh
tell
comfortable.
God."
everyone when I'm explaining like what we talk about on the podcast, I say, Scott and I have really similar viewpoints on a lot of things, but where he lives, he's the liberal. Where I live, I'm the conservative. Even though we both
Right.
have this same opinion.
Yeah,
It's a
man,
fine line.
we love our Trump. In fact, we live in a little tiny town called Alma, and when I first got here, there was a Trump parade coming through. There's just Trump signs everywhere, so it's just I don't know,
Oh
man.
yeah.
People, we love Trump here, I guess.
Well, that
I have a
happens here in
question.
California, Los Alamitos. You get
Oh yeah,
is a heavy, yeah. That's just down the street from us. So
yeah. So I had a question for you. This is more of a practical question. So when I got here, I started carrying a gun with me, right? Literally like on me. And it
mhm.
was like the worst experience in my life because you got this heavy thing pulling your pants down. It's like when you
Yeah,
get in your car and sit down, it's jabbing in your side, and it's just and that lasted 4 days, and I'm like, no, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
changes your life.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? I mean, I'm sure you probably carry a gun around with you on a regular basis. I'm assuming. Um,
Well, I'm
is it
always
just
armed.
yeah, always
I'm always
armed? Yeah,
physically armed. I always got both my arms. But then, yeah, I'm gonna say 99% of the time I'm armed, and then that just comes down to sometimes uh, weapons platform choice, meaning which firearm am I going to take.
yeah,
I have one that's 380. It's small. That is usually always on me. And then depending on what I'm going to go do, I make a decision as to whether I'm going to take a 40 or a 45 with me. Uh, both that I have to stay qualified on. And then as far as carrying them around, well, let me say this too, just as a reminder, because this is a big thing with law enforcement. Because when I taught martial arts at the police academy for years, and so you end up, that's where I learned more different types of martial arts. That's actually what got me into jiu-jitsu. We do everything from stand up, from control, grabbing people, joint controls, to pugilistics, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, to ground fighting, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all those things. And one of the big keys to always remember, especially just as a citizen carrying a firearm, there's a gun everywhere you go. There's absolutely a gun everywhere you go. And the problem is you're the one that brought it there. And it doesn't
yeah.
mean you're the one leaving with it, which means if you're not careful or paying attention, and you'd be amazed the number of people we get calls all the time for people that were permitted to carry it. And they go to, let's say they go to Denny's and like, oh, this is uncomfortable. This thing's digging in my side. So they take it out and they set it on the seat next to them, right? And then they finish their meal and they get up and they leave. And they're like, I don't know what happened to my gun. I'm like, we'll probably never find it, right?
Does it
And
in
so
California? Does a concealed carry go from county to county, or is it only good in the county you get it in?
that's a great question. I think it's if you get a concealed carry, I believe it's for state. It's all going to be for the state, but it's authorized by the county, and then the county may allow like I'll throw this example out. You have like the county of LA gives a couple of agencies within that county the opportunity to decide who carries a weapon inside that that the city that they live in. And
I
but it's
see.
very few. They'll be like, they just don't give them out.
Well, and then
They're
there are places that are outright you can't have it, right? Like a school or something like that. Even though you have a concealed carry, you're not allowed to bring a weapon on the school campus, is my understanding.
for a citizen concealed carry, yes, likely.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
law enforcement, one of the issues that they bump into from time to time is depending on the venue. Like
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. Like Dodger Stadium's controlled by the local police department there, and they may opt to let nobody in with a weapon because they're the ones that want to control that environment. So even an outside law enforcement agency might not be allowed to bring one onto that venue or onto that premise because the security there wants to be responsible and they don't know who that, they, if let's say you were the law enforcement officer, they may not know you and they don't want to risk harm to you or you doing harm to people on what they're responsible for. So that can get very, very unique too.
Mm.
So I think that you have counties that are the ones that can authorize it, but then that also funnels through State Department of Justice to be able to carry a weapon within that state. Law enforcement under, I forget the federal law, but it's under Homeland Security, has the ability to take firearms, onto planes and stuff, but secretly, able to work it out if they are, they can do that. But if they do, then they enter into an agreement for the flight that they're going on and the flight back that they won't be consuming any alcohol. And then it's made known to the stewardesses who's who. And even if it's packed in your luggage under the plane, that still happens. And that's just so that they know you're a resource that could be used if they need it. And then, to be honest, you're under the rules and control of that airline for the most part. It's like ships at sea. The captain of the ship is in charge and decides what happens. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's 100% like that, but it's kind of like that with airplanes. They're the ones that have command of what's going to happen on the plane.
Mm. That's
So I say,
fascinating.
Scott, that everywhere you have a gun, you take it, that you're the one that brought it there. So it's security is your responsibility. And then pulling it out, you have to think about this. Like, you ever have an argument with somebody and you use, like you were saying earlier, let's try not to cuss or anything. Once you use certain words, you can't get those words back. So you can be very regretful in a conversation. Well, now that applies to bullets. You pull a gun out, then
Yeah.
you're saying that you're willing to use it. So you've shown it. And now I promise you that's going to cause a bunch of phone calls to the police probably. And they're
Yeah.
describing you with the firearm, which is now an additional concern for your own safety in life. And
Yeah.
then if you were to point and end up using it, what's your plan if you had to use it? Right. And once you fire a bullet, you can never get that round back. Right.
Yeah.
And and if it's absolutely appropriate and right, then fantastic. You did the right thing at the right moment because you used it as a tool to prevent somebody from doing harm, generally for reverence of life, like you were trying to save somebody's life, your own or somebody else's. But you're not just shooting for somebody for the sake of shooting. I didn't like what he said, so I shot him. It's not gonna fly so well. So I
Yeah.
say that because that's the criticality. That's the one class I'd like to see him. Like, if you wanted to get a firearm, I think that to buy a firearm, you should have to go to a safety course just so you don't shoot yourself and others. Then I think you should go to a marksmanship course. To me, there's two different. They can probably combine those two. An hour of safety, where to point, where not to point. Never point the gun at anything you're not willing to shoot or destroy. And then they should have a class that's a liability class. Like, here's what's going to happen to you if you do this. If you pull out the gun and end up shooting somebody and they survive, and shooting somebody and they die. And if you intended to shoot somebody but you shot somebody else, those are all things that happen regularly when you talk about it.
That's why I don't carry a gun with me on a regular basis, is because there is so much liability and there is so much training. I mean, just the like administration of it, just the carrying it, the movement, do you keep on in the chamber? Do you not? I mean, there is just, I didn't feel comfortable carrying a gun. I just didn't feel comfortable carrying a gun around. And it gets hot here in the summer. It's like summer, then you sweat all over it. It's just, there's a lot. There's when I first got here, I was like a kid in a candy store. It's like, oh my god, I can do whatever I want. Not whatever I want, but I can. Guns are cool. In California, they don't really like guns there, but here you can do it. And then I'm like, do I really want to do that? What kind of training? How responsible? I mean, there's a lot to that. That's a big decision. I remember when we were taking our concealed carry class. It was it's like, oh my gosh. It was I was scared out of my freaking mind actually at this concealed carry class, because basically you sit there for 3 hours, and if basically you get a concealed carry, you only got to do two things. If you don't fall asleep for 3 hours of lecture, and if you can hit like a 10 by 10 foot thing from 10 feet away, if you can hit that 10 times in a row, you're good. But I saw women, they were swinging their gun around. I'm like, oh my god, this is horrible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this lady, I mean, half the people there should not have a gun. I mean, they were scaring the heck. I'm like, I need to get out of here, man, because this is bad. And
so the driving test is harder than getting the concealed carry?
They've given away like candy here, you
It's
know.
like your driver's test, you got to pass that. I was thinking as you were talking, you need training. It's like I think parents need training on how to be a parent too, but that's that's another conversation.
Yeah, that is. Well, I think people, because they understand I think they understand and then don't fully understand the power of a firearm.
Yeah,
And
right.
so they get a little giddy. I'm getting a gun. It's going to empower me.
Yeah,
But they don't have any idea of what it really does. And then they're sitting there and they're just, like you said, it's called covering. The barrel is covering things you don't want it to cover. So
yeah,
that's why we say never point it at people. And there's countless videos now, especially with social media and YouTube and all this, of people just sitting around. There's a video of a couple of gangsters and a gal in the car, and she's messing with the gun. You see the guy keep reaching out, like, stop pointing at me. Like, he's a gangster, and at least he knows, don't point it at me. And she's
yeah.
like pulling the mag out, putting the mag in. Yeah, she's like trying to act like, hey, look, I know what I'm doing. And then she turns the gun and she's doing it, and boom, pops a round off, hits him in the head, and he's bleeding out on video. And the guy in the back seat he's out the car and running because he already knows what that means.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
a guy
Yeah,
sitting in the back seat while it's all going on. So the thing is that people want to look like they know something when they don't.
yeah,
It's complete incompetence, but
yeah,
they don't want to be known for not knowing, so they do too much, and
yeah,
then they create
But that fear I
yeah,
mentioned earlier about realizing it's a tool that can kill. I mean, when I am holding a gun, I am hyper aware of where that barrel is because
yeah. Thank
where
God.
the
That's
barrel's
the
pointing.
thing. Yeah,
Because I know that you know if it's pointed at if it's not pointed at someone, even if a bullet comes out, it's not going to hurt them, right?
right.
I mean,
hopefully,
I say give
hopefully, yeah,
everybody a buck knife before they get a gun. Give them a little. When we were kids, at least when I was a kid, the first thing you got was a little folding knife. Wasn't
I
oh
think I
it?
yeah,
got one over
That's
there.
it.
Yeah,
yeah,
And dad or gramps tells you, hey, this will cut you, and it could
yeah,
cause serious injury. Be
that is
careful
yeah,
with
one
it.
thing I do carry
Within
around is
5 minutes, yeah, just like that. And within 5 minutes, you cut yourself, and you're like, all right, give me the knife, and you lose the knife for 2 weeks, but you start to learn that these things are serious.
yeah. That part
It's a
does
lot of
scare
it
me.
can't happen to me.
Yeah, because I've taken a bunch of training classes, and I love the training classes because they're typically taught by special forces guys, and it's a beautiful experience because they don't baby you. I mean, they don't really care. And like, 'cause I'll be griping and bitching about something, like I took like a long range rifle class, and
Yeah.
I had a suppressor on, right? I'm a good citizen, right? And this other guy's shooting a 338 Lapua next to me with a muzzle brake on it, and I'm
Right.
next to you. And
Boom.
you are not a good guy, right? And literally when that thing goes off, it just literally shakes your whole body or whatever, and it's not fun. And I was bitching about it to the instructor, and he's like, "Just shut up, just shoot your gun, just ignore it." And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like
almost like,
they don't baby you. It's like,
should he be able to go
well,
down the line and go, hey, you don't like it? Let me just you're not allowed to be here anymore. Like, you need to go. You can't take that. You don't need to own a gun.
yeah,
it's not they
and
don't
it's
care. It's what they care about is very focused as a right. They
Yeah.
care about making sure that you learn what you're supposed to learn out of this, not that how you felt when you were learning it or anything like
how
that.
you felt, if it's cold, if it's hot, because you're shooting a rifle, you're going through the scope, and then like sweat's dripping down in your face and going in your eye, and a fly's
My
on
glasses are
you,
fogging up. I can't
and you're
see, and
fogging
yeah,
up, and they're like, just freaking ignore it, just shoot, right? And I'm like, and it's like such a different mindset than we typically grow up here, where everything you're catered to. It's, oh, that's okay, you don't want to
Have
have
you ever
any.
received brass?
What's that?
Have you ever received brass?
Received brass?
like a
So
hot
you're on the
piece of
firing
brass.
line, and you got somebody next to you, and they shoot, and their brass flies over and gets in your collar and is burning your
Oh,
neck
Yeah,
for
while
God's
you're.
sakes. Yes, yes, yes. That sucks.
That's
Yes.
that's
I
the
hate
best part of the training day, because that makes
I
that
don't
boom and
shoot that
everything
much, but
else
I've
like
even
that's
had that
not
happen to
important.
me. So
Yeah. That
Oh,
makes
yeah.
everything else so less important.
So whenever I do a class, I make sure that I wear a tight, like, collared, what do you call it? So it doesn't go inside your collar thing.
Right.
Because boy,
Yeah,
oh boy, that's painful actually. Yeah. Yeah. So you've had
that's the
that
truth.
happen, I'm sure, a bunch of times. Yeah, I've had it happen a
Oh,
bunch of times. So
almost every time I go to the range.
because that just brass,
I
it
think
just
there's a guardian
flies.
angel. I think there's a guardian angel just deflecting them into like bing, the brass is flying, bing, right in. I'm like, no, it's not my
In
guardian
fact,
angel though.
there was one time we were shooting. It was like these other guys were shooting steel, and they were shooting at a little bit of an angle, and I was like on
Uh-huh.
the end, and I was literally getting pelted with when the shell when the bullet breaks up.
Yeah, you're
Um,
getting either getting
I
the
don't know what
brass or the lead.
a little break,
It's
and
usually
literally I
lead
had
covered by, yeah.
little
That's
blood spots all over me or whatever like that. So I'm
yeah,
like,
that's
it's
joyful too,
crazy.
isn't it?
Whew.
I
Yeah.
remember the most painful thing I had was I was shooting my dad's 38 revolver, and somehow my fingers got in front of the cylinder. So I
Ooh.
ended up getting, gunpowder embedded in my fingers. And that was took a couple of weeks for me to get the feeling back. It
Oh,
hurt like
that's
hell.
interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
What rifle caliber did you first shoot? Like Scott, you said you were been shooting since 6. When you were 6, were you able to shoot a rifle? What size was that if you
Yeah, and
did?
22. 22.
Yeah, did I?
Everything was 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny. I still have my dad's gun, the one I shot on. So I moved back to Arkansas. He passed away a few years ago. So I
Hmm.
still have that original. It's a Remington nylon 66. Apparently they made them in the millions way back in. It's just a small
Oh,
little
man.
22 rifle
Yeah.
and a hand. That's what I learned to shoot
Single
on.
single shot bolt action.
No, it's a
Yep.
semi-automatic actually.
Oh,
Oh,
Semi-automatic.
I
I
okay.
learned
never
on a
shot.
little single shot bolt action.
Oh
It
yeah.
was fun to
Yeah,
do.
ditto. Well, because there's hardly any recoil, but all of the principles of firing are well laid out with that. I think that's the first thing anybody should shoot on is a rifle, because the length of a rifle creates accuracy, and then the shorter the barrel goes, the less accuracy you have, and then all of the fundamentals come into that: the breathe, relax, aim, squeeze, shoot. All of that comes into it. I bought each one of my sons one when they became of age, so that when we went to the rifle range, I'd be like, "You can shoot this as much as you want,
Yeah.
because bullets are,
Right.
a couple bucks for
22
50."
ammo. Yes.
And then I have a 30-06, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's like $1 a bullet. We can each take 10 shots. Like we don't
Yeah.
need to be killing." The principles to me are the same. You do want to have experience on each weapons platform, but just trying to save a couple
Yeah.
bucks as a pop. So
Can I steer away from guns for a moment?
Sure.
You,
yeah.
you you made a comment earlier when we were talking about martial arts about knowledge, training, and experience. Experience being
Hmm.
when Scott was talking about that second, third degree black belt who was, who couldn't do anything against the master, but the idea that it occurred to me as you were talking that it's very. We always talk about knowledge is power and knowledge is important and all that, right? And knowledge is important, right? But I can sit there and watch YouTube for hours and get lots of knowledge, right? Then there's training. There's actual kind of a hands-on usage of whatever that knowledge is. But at the end of the day, experience is what makes you capable. It, and
Yeah.
and what I'm going to, and I'm thinking this applies not just to physical things, but I remember years ago when I was an IT manager, and I had to hire an IT person to help out in managing our networks. And the guy I hired had no certificates, no degree, no anything, but he'd been in IT for years, and he knew all the things. He'd been in all the situations, and I would take him over anyone who had all the certificates, because at the end of the day, he knew how to do things. He also knew the solutions that weren't in the book, right? Because
Yeah.
he had the experience. And it occurs to me that in many ways, we all get focused on the knowledge. Some people will go to the level of training and take a course and maybe do some hands-on stuff. But very few of us get to the point where we actually build the experience. We stop before we actually build the experience. So we know a lot of stuff without knowing, quotes here,
Yeah.
knowing a lot of stuff. And I'm
Right.
wondering if that matches your thinking on kind of the value of experience.
Yeah. I think, I was just in this great class by a coworker that was talking about the usage of weapons and the results, the court results and all that. And he was explaining something I thought was a fantastic concept that he was explaining. He goes, sometimes, if you're trying to explain something to lawyers or to a jury or whatever, they don't know. Like, this is the first time they've heard what this information means. So he goes, before you actually give an answer, because an attorney in court might ask you a question, you have to realize if the jury doesn't know what your answer is going to mean, then you have to provide an answer that's two-part. First, it's an education. Give them a little bit of education so they understand why your answer means what it means. So, for me growing up, I nearly failed every grade growing up. I didn't find out until January 2023 what that really meant, but it was one of my blind spots over the course of my life was that I had this blind spot where I was always choosing not to finish something, and then I would finish other stuff that I had great interest in. So what does that mean? So if I nearly failed every grade growing, right? Yeah, you start and then it's like the fear of success or whatever, like, it's like, oh, I really achieved that one. So it's weird because there's things that I just wanted to do, which I think I did those things to prove that I could do it. So, multiple black belts, 5th-degree black belt in Japanese, karate, shooting, winning trophies. I won trophies as a kid. I was like 60 points ahead of anybody else at times. Like, I don't know why. That's what I was good at. I wasn't good at the books. Right. And then, I've gone parachuting. I've accomplished things that I just, those kind of things that it's like, well, becoming a Marine, I mean, that's not easy to do in the first place. So I say all of that because, yeah, you can watch and you see people all day long gather knowledge and training. Experience is important because, like you said, it is what helps people make the best decisions. Because of the way I grew up, I don't want to say I don't respect education the same. I do. I think it's phenomenal. But I think what's important is the knowledge you gain needs to become practical, meaning you can use it and gain the experience from it. So I explain that because my perspective on it comes to this. I was looking through, as I'm wrapping up my law enforcement career, I also do financial coaching and stuff. But I was looking at other potential jobs because I've been working in employee relations, human relations lately, and I wanted to see what it looked like on the outside world. I'm amazed that they only make about $80,000 to $90,000. I'm like, but I make like twice that. Why would I want to, lessen that? And I was also amazed that looking through, for example, like LinkedIn, every single job, regardless of what was that, or I love boating, so I'm looking at Yamaha boats, seeing what kind of jobs and careers they have. All these and not necessarily that it's Yamaha asking for this. All these companies are asking people for Juris Doctorate level education for entry level jobs that only pay 70, 80, 90,000, maybe 110 at max. So give or take, 100 grand a year. And I'm just like, is there a return on investment for that level of education they got? So I'm not really a huge fan of, it's kind of like those people, people that got the degree, they worked hard for it, and they're worth every penny of the degree they got. And then I think that's 20%. It's the 80-20 principle. Then there's 80% of people that got the title. Hey, I got a piece of paper. I got a degree. Look, I got a degree. But they don't know anything, they skated through or, they figured out a way through the system. So when you mention a guy that knows that stuff, I'll take the guy that knows the job over anybody that has a piece of paper or certificate any day of the week. Because that experience is what I need. So entrepreneurially, there's oftentimes a question of, if you were to hire somebody, do you hire them to tell you how to help your company better? Or do you hire them so you have to tell them what to do? Where's the real value in what you're trying to gather or gain from it? And if you hire somebody and you have to, they take all your attention because you're constantly telling them what they have to do, did you really free up any time by creating this hire so you could focus on other things? So if you apply that to the construct of, does it pay off to hire somebody that's certified or has a high degree, or to have somebody who has experience? I think the experienced guy is always getting paid less because they didn't take time to get the paper. And I think they should be paid a lot more because they have the experience and can solve the problems. Maybe you hire them in at a lower rate, but give them bonuses for the level of problems they're able to solve. So I think when you look at it like that, whether it be martial arts or not, that experience becomes very important. And I'm also a believer on experience. That only happens as fast as the clock moves. But you can, like, if it's a matter of handling one type of situation, the more of those I can do in an hour, the faster I can expand that experience. So there's ways to speed up experience, but really the knowledge, the training, and experience is expertise. And I think people aren't paid for expertise; they're paid for a piece of paper. And that's heartbreaking to me, because
I think that certificate, that knowledge that they got the piece of paper for, is become a proxy for laziness. Because used to be, well, I don't want to go, hey, it used to be this way, but I mean, in my mind, the requirement was, it used to be that you would go and try to find a job, they would interview you, they'd talk to you, they'd try you out, and basically you kind of built on the relationship, right? And now they've got so many hundreds, if not thousands, of people applying for jobs. They don't have the time or the wherewithal to be able to do that. So what's my fastest way? Well, let's just start marking people off. What can I do? Here, do you have the certificate? Nope. All right, you're out the door. You might be the best person for that job, but they're never going to know, because the way the system has been designed, they're going to cut you out because of that piece of paper.
Right. They made it easier on the person that has to hire somebody. They used to say this. They used to say, if you actually got a sit-down job interview, it's because you are qualified. So we got 10 people lined up for job X. They're all qualified because we're inviting them to the interview. The interview is really to find out whether they're likable or not and a good fit for that company or that team.
That culture, that team, now,
yeah. Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. Now the system's set up to, it's a funneling system, and it funnels people off that, they don't have a piece of paper, so I don't even want to talk to them. And that, like you said, that might be the person that you should be talking to. They should probably recreate the system where it allows those people to get funneled into a different assessment to funnel back into a system. Like, how do you find those expertise? The people with
how do you find the outside the box person, right? Because I think that's, I have a theory that I've kind of put together. Did we lose Brian?
Yeah, you cut on me real quick. I got you right here, and then I didn't hear anything you said after that.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say was, I've got this theory now about how HR departments work.
It's teasing us.
Looks like he's frozen again.
Woodchuck the gray squirrel. Come in, gray squirrel.
Looks like his internet is going down a little bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Brian?
Woodchuck trying to reconnect.
He got bored of us.
Someone logged on to the internet in his house.
Uh-oh. He's gone.
Maybe he'll come back in.
He may come back.
No, I was going to say, though, I've got this theory of, and I think I mentioned it to you, about HR and how it's developed into what it is today.
Now, Chris.
And I think IT went through the same thing. What happened was, businesses knew they needed something to make their businesses grow, to make it more successful. And somewhere along the line, technology became the answer. So IT departments started hiring lots of people, and they started specializing, and they would get coders and developers and business analysts and people making product requirements documents and all that kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was, there was a lot of bloat in IT and a lot of growth. But the growth wasn't necessarily efficient, right? And I think what ended up happening was, IT got so big that it became a drain in many ways on a lot of companies, and it lost its edge, right? And he says he's reloading right now, so hopefully
that happens, Chris, especially in something that we just need this, and we just need as many people as possible. Because I've been in like technology companies where that's happened. We just got to hire like 20 people. We just got to get them in as fast as possible,
And that was the focus for a while. But I think what ended up happening was, people started to say, well, no, it's not the systems. They're all the same. What we need is people, special leaders, special skill sets. And so suddenly it was HR's responsibility to find the perfect person to fix the company,
Yeah.
right? And so they started getting empowered. They started getting money. They started getting more systems, HR systems and the like, that gave them the power to do this. And they started
Yeah.
to be able to look at a wider population of potential candidates, which then I think has led us to where we are today. Well, that one other thing, I think HR also gained a lot of power during the pandemic, because that's when we ended up with Black Lives Matter and the DEI movements getting very strong. And basically there was no other department set up to handle that type of influx. HR seemed to be it makes sense, let's put it under HR. So HR took on kind of a new skill set, although some companies were already doing it, but took on a new skill set. And so suddenly HR became the powerful department in every company.
Yeah.
That's how it feels to me. So let me send him in a see. It shows that it's reconnected. All right, welcome back. I don't know what happened there, but I think we're back online.
Awesome.
So, go ahead, Scott. You were going to change the topic?
Yeah, I wanted to change the subject. If you're okay, Brian, I basically want to try to extract some free coaching out of you.
Ruh-roh. I'll do my best.
So here, I had a situation, and I don't know if I handled this well or not, and I really want to get better at dealing with people. Chris is like, no, you didn't handle it well at all. Actually, you probably didn't. Well, anyways, this is maybe this could be a teachable moment for me then. So I bought some aluminum material from a metal supplier, and they shipped it to me. And put your credit card in, it comes, and they actually shipped me one extra piece of aluminum. And so I thought for a second that maybe this is just a free gift, and I thought I wasn't gonna call them and let them know, and I couldn't do that. It's like there was something inside of me that says no, you can't do that. Karma's gonna come. You're just not a good thing. If you make an exception here, then it just keeps getting worse. So you got to do the right thing. You got to call them, and I did not have a good experience with them, and it turned out. And I feel really horrible about it. And so I'd like to role play the scenario with you, and maybe you could correct me and kind of teach me what to do next time. It'd be nice to get some other, because it's still bugging me to this day, and it happened like a few days ago. And before I get started on this, is that a good feeling? Or sorry, is that a signal that if you're bugged by something, you should probably review it and do something different? Does that seem reasonable?
I think if it's on your mind, then you might have some level of regret about it because it didn't go the way you wanted it. And so I don't know what level of perfectionist you are, if you're 20 or 90%, depending. But, we don't want to wrong somebody. And sometimes that eats at us. That's why they say, apologies or confession, those kind of things, get the weight off of something that didn't go well off of us so we can live better. So, it could be along those lines. And to be honest, you probably really got to realize too, it might not have been so much you as much as it, could have been the way the process happened. I don't know.
I think a lot of this comes to escalation and de-escalation. Mm-hmm. And we always talk about, you escalated the situation, you de-escalated the situation. And the awareness it takes to be able to do that, to control that. Do you want to escalate it or do you want to de-escalate it? Because there's an awareness in there, and I think Scott got caught in that. He'll
yeah, I got caught up in it, and I guess I got caught up in two possibilities, right? One, I'm telling myself I just wanted to do the right thing. That'd be the noble thing, which I think there's some amount of truth to that. The other thing is I had the guilt, so I had guilt about this, and so I'm like, was I just trying to fix my own guilt, or was I really trying to do the right thing? And a little bit of both, but I kind of feel maybe it's a little bit more I was trying to get rid of my guilt. So anyways, I called him. I got an extra piece of this material, and I called him and said, hey, you guys shipped me an extra piece of material. And the dollar amount wasn't a big amount. It was like a total of $100, right, if I just bought it brand new. And I said, hey, you shipped me the wrong thing. And then already they were just, it's like the part that irked me, this is the part that kind of set me off, was the part that it's like they did nothing wrong. Like, even if they said, hey, we're sorry we made a mistake, let's talk about how we can fix it. They're like, you got two options, right? They're just coming at me. and they're like, you can either pay full price for it or you can ship it back. And I'm like, well, I got a third option. I could just do nothing too, right? So and so immediately I started getting a little, which probably then I didn't de-escalate, which set the whole thing. And they were just very difficult. And they're like, we don't understand the big deal. It's like, we don't know, why can't you just ship the thing back? Because I'm like, it's expensive. This thing's heavy. It probably cost me $50 to ship it back. And why should I have to pay $50 when it was your air? And they're like, okay, that's fair enough. So we can send you a thing and then you can package it up for us and ship it back. But I don't know how to pack it because it's big and it's heavy and I had to get a box and I had to take this time. And, I'm not a shipping department. And I told them I'm just some dude in my garage, right? And so it didn't go very well. And what I wanted them to say, what I was hoping for them to say was like, just keep it. We're sorry. No problem. Get a bonus. We love having your business again. But they were very clear. Look, we don't care if you buy from us or not, right? You're a tiny customer. We have thousands of customers. And basically it was a screw you sort of thing. And that bugged me. And then I started getting justified. So then we negotiated down the price, but they were very unhappy about it. So it just turned out ugly. And now I don't trust that company anymore. And I'm just wondering, what could I have done better on my end? What could I have done better on my end to make it a better experience for both of us?
Gotcha. Well, I got a couple questions. I mean, would the piece have served, like if one of the pieces you had got damaged, would that serve as a replacement?
No, because it's metal. It's like a hunk of it's like a raw hunk of aluminum, so it's hard.
What would you have done with it if you didn't call?
Would you like drop it?
Would you have trashed it or?
No, I would have kept it. But then I would have felt guilty. I couldn't sleep. I would have felt guilty the whole time. It's like I just don't know because I don't know. There's just something inside me from a guilt standpoint.
Yeah. You ever take a lawnmower apart and have extra parts when you put it back together? I mean, it's like it's an extra part.
And obviously they don't care because they even asked the question, why did you even call us, right? I mean, it's like they could care less about it, right? Because they're shipping truckloads of stuff, and
that's what it sounds
like. I think I would like to think that. I'd like to think that, but maybe it was guilt, maybe a little integrity.
Scott, I was just thinking of something that happened to me that I had a better result, but it was almost the same. In the early days of Amazon, back when they didn't ship as much stuff and they were just kind of getting in outside of the book business, we ordered cheese paper, waxed paper that you use to store your cheese, so it won't go moldy. And we ordered like a roll of cheese paper, and they sent us a case of cheese paper. A case of rolls, like 12 or 24 or some huge amount. So I said, that can't be right. We paid $10 and you gave us so I called them up and told them, and they said, just keep it. Amazon in the early days did that a lot. They said, just keep it, because they made a lot of errors with shipping. I remember a lot of times when I would order something and they would send us the wrong thing, or they would say, and they wouldn't even ask for it back. But I think that actually helped me be comfortable ordering more and more stuff from them, because I realized that they wouldn't hold me responsible when they made a mistake.
That's what I wanted to happen. Or maybe cut me a deal and they're like, okay, let me tell you what, let's do this. It would cost you $50 to ship it back. Normally you have to pay that. The material's $100. So what if you pay $50 and we'd make a deal, right? And I'd be like, fine. And then I would be singing that company's praises for the rest of my life. I'd say, oh, you're not buying from those guys. You need to buy from them because they do the right thing, actually. Right. And now I don't know that I'd recommend them. I don't even know that I'll buy from them again. What? And this ties into one thing.
No,
sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
And it ties into one thing is like, Chris and I talked about that last time, is trust. Like, trust in relationships is so fundamental. And I just don't know that I trust them because I don't feel like they cared about me. Obviously, I was just an annoyance and I was bugging them, and it just, So anyways, how could I have replayed that? How could I have played my hand better?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you could have played it different. I mean, you called with intentions, but remember, the impact isn't always what you intended. You intended on calling with the, it appears that you called with the intention of being integral and saying, hey, this is extra. This doesn't belong to me. I want to make sure I return property. right? And not necessarily at my expense, it's yours. If you want it back, let me know, and if you help work me through that, I'll get it back to you. If not, then and you're okay with me keeping it, great. And that sounds like that was the outcome you were hoping to see, but that wasn't the impact of your
Yeah.
intention. The impact of your intention was you probably got somebody that wasn't having a good day in the first place, or the last person they dealt with in customer
Yeah.
service had them tweaked, and that had nothing to do with Scott, and it had to do everything with them taking out their last call for service on you. So my point being is, don't let somebody else's bad day become your bad day. Their emergency is not yours. You called them with something to be helpful with. And in the grander scheme of things, you accomplished what you set out to accomplish by offering to return something that didn't belong to you. And if they couldn't arrive to the right thing, nobody's coming. They're not calling the police going, hey, we need a search warrant at Scott's house. He's got guns and aluminum, and we want our aluminum.
Yeah, we want our $50 of aluminum back. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
and he's got a machine back there. Who knows what he's doing with that aluminum?
Yeah, I mean, there's tariffs out there, and the tariff on aluminum's going up. So, I mean, so I just say that to kind of take some of the value off, because when you think of what people say or do, you have to think about who benefits on your side. I think you've benefited because you made your offer and it wasn't necessarily accepted. That's okay. That's tort law. You made an offer, they didn't accept it, you're done. On their side, what did they say or do, and what was who benefited from what they did? They didn't benefit because you no longer trust them. And that doesn't really matter either, unless you decide that's the best quality product you can get. And I would say that if you decided to do business with them again in the future, and it was, let's say it's not just an order online, but it's a phone call, just say, hey, this happened last time. I just want to make sure I don't get an extra piece, because I think somebody on that side, God bless them, they just weren't having a good day. And it left a bad taste in my mouth because I kind of felt like they took it out on me, but I'm still honorable. You're still a good man. You're not lesser of a man. Look at yourself.
Yeah.
Look at yourself, Scott. Is there a piece missing all of a sudden?
It bugs me though. It's still to this. It bugs me. It still bugs me.
Missing,
it's like,
right?
maybe I need to just get over it or something. But yeah.
There we go. There's no piece missing.
We all go into a conversation. We all go into a conversation with an outcome expected, right? An expected outcome.
I was hoping. Yeah, I was hoping for something.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you need. How do you craft your conversation to get to that outcome?
They were not having it. It's like this happens all the time. Companies just ship it back. I don't know what your problem is.
But if you just explain, this is the situation I'm in. I don't have the ability to do the things that you're used to people doing. So, do we have a way to work through this? And I think we've talked about this in the past too, is like when I'm dealing with customer service people at a company. All right, we had another break there. No, I was just saying, when I'm dealing with someone, I know that they're limited what they can do because they've got policies and procedures that keep them from being able to do everything I want. Yeah. If it's a real liberal company that liberal in how they treat their customers, a lot of times they've got a stance where they empower their people to be able to do refunds and the like, or to give discounts and the like. And but I'll usually tell them, I understand you got these rules. This is my situation. What can you do for me? And I try to shortcut a lot of the conversation that's going to be frustrating, which is them telling me to do this and this, or have you tried rebooting this? Have you tried going back to factory setting? Whatever it is you're calling for support about, I try to preempt that and say, I've done all these things. Can we just jump to the to the next part?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't want to harp on this thing. Hopefully I just did everything I could do that was the right thing to do, because that's all I can control is my own behavior. I can't control theirs.
Yeah, exactly. You can't control how they're going to react to you. And if you ask me, I think you've accomplished everything that you needed to set out to accomplish. Your integrity's intact. You're still a fine lad. I'll even say it in Irish for you. You're still a fine lad, and everything's going to work out for you.
Oh, yeah. I had a backup joke for our Toastmasters meeting today in case my the other one didn't go.
Oh, is that right?
You want to hear it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, there's a couple and they're having their first son, and they're both of mixed heritage. So the husband's half Irish and half Indian, and the wife is half Chinese and half Italian. and they both want the kid to have a name that reflects their heritage. And they get into an argument, and they're arguing, and they're arguing, and they're arguing. And so after several days, they finally come to a conclusion that makes them happy on all fronts. They're going to name their kid Ravioli. Ravi? Oli.
Ravioli.
Sorry.
That's a little bit on the dad joke side, but that was a good one.
Oh, I love the dad jokes. The dad jokes are my favorite jokes are the one-liners, the really short ones.
Yeah.
You heard that one, dwarf shortage?
No.
He was trying to write one of the comedians was trying to write the shortest joke, and he said the 2 words, dwarf shortage.
That is so politically incorrect.
It is.
That's right. Well, these days. It's not very.
Well, the problem is
salad,
everything's politically incorrect depending on your mindset. If you're coming from a filter of what you want to be offended, you'll find a way to get offended no matter what I say.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, I think that's learned too. I think that's taught and learned.
It's taught and learned. Yeah. And it's always existed, but I just think it's gotten to be a lot more the sensitivity level. And because we were told to tolerate a lot from people. And Scott and I have talked about this. Tolerate and accept are 2 different things. I can tolerate a lot in the world. I don't accept that it's good or right, but I tolerate it, right? And that's right. the I think one thing that people get is I can tolerate people having ideas that are totally different than mine. I don't have to accept their ideas. Mm-hmm. But there's a viewpoint today that you have to accept my ideas for me to feel like you value that I'm valuable.
I want to say that's kind of where I was coming from, and I think all of us. I think yourself, myself, Jamar, and Dan. We were all kind of saying the same thing this morning. Is just we're going to debate. Just because we're saying something does not mean I believe what I'm saying. It means it's the place I'm taking for the purpose of this debate. Because people will be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that." I'm like, "Well, the problem is you think that I believe that."
Well, that happens to me. If we're going to promote human trafficking, if we're going to promote human trafficking to harvest organs, I mean, that was just
where was Jamar going? Come on, I was hoping we'd talk about whether you like white cheese or yellow cheese, not something like human trafficking.
Exactly.
Gosh, you're even racist about cheese.
Right. What's the difference between sharp cheddar and mild cheddar? That's a debate. But I mean, think about it, and think about it in the conversations you have with people too, because I came across that quote this past year because a lot of the stuff that we deal with in teaching leadership, at work, and that I deal with teaching leadership is to help people understand to be able to discuss a topic and not own belief in it and just entertain ideas is a true sign of intelligence because you're trying to solve a problem and you have to take the pro or con of something that you don't like to be able to understand it better. Just that's the, like we said, the purpose of the debate. So, I think
I heard someone say the same thing in a slightly different way was the ability to have 2 opposing or different opinions at the same time is a sign of, intelligence, is a sign of understanding.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's recognition of a problem too. You're like, we've not solved the problem. So I don't know if this is going left or right or up or down. We're still doing the math. We haven't finished factoring everything down to know what X really means yet.
Wow.
So many people can't do this. And this is something I don't realize because I do this naturally. You tell me what I'm supposed to be solving for, and I will adjust my mindset to solve for that. If I have to totally change, the constraints that I'm using, I'll change the constraints I'm using. And quite often when I'm trying to understand something, I'll ask a bunch of questions like, well, what do you mean by this? And what are we talking about with this? And the other person gets defensive because they think I'm trying to attack them and take them apart. And really what I'm trying to do is understand their constraints so I can put my mind into their mindset and be able to solve an alignment with them. But they feel like
that's probably the one with the Juris Doctorate.
Well,
they're probably
I don't have one of those, but
and they just can't think it out, Yeah. I may not be rapid in thought, but I'm good in thought, in which I just take my time. I like people would do math and figure it out in like 30 seconds, and I'm still there 3 or 4 minutes later going, okay, wait a minute, carry the 2, and I'll get the problem right. I'm just not going to get it, lightning lightning fast.
Yeah.
I think all of that plays in, and I think that's great. And I think sometimes too, it's like we were saying, provide education before the answer. I think that's part of that process too. And just, hey, just a reminder, I'm not saying I accept, I'm just saying I'm exploring, this idea. And there's a lot, maybe it's a topic that has a lot of hate in it. And it's like, I'm not saying I agree with the hate. I'm trying to say that I understand why somebody hates in that matter. It doesn't mean I agree with it.
You're priming the audience to understand the point you're trying to make, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of hate, there's something I really hate actually. And that is, I see it all the time. Like I was watching some Congress show or something like this, and they'll ask a question to the other person, and it's like, yes or no, yes or no. That's my only two choices. Like you're not allowed to say anything. They force you into this black and white thinking, and that like annoys me to no end actually. Because sometimes questions can't be answered with yes or no.
There's a book by Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy was a congressman. He, years ago, he was from South Carolina. He's still alive, but he realized as a state prosecutor that when you're in Congress in DC, it's not really like you're asking questions to gain information or an answer. That's why they spend a lot of time spewing narrative and then asking a question going, oh, that's unresponsive, which really means you're not answering what I want you to answer.
Yes.
But he says that it's really about how much information can you get out there while asking a question to go, yeah, I ask questions, and it leaves a lot of things inconclusive too.
Yeah. And I've seen Jordan Peterson do that. Like somebody will be giving a speech and he'll be like, so are you just up here giving a speech or is there actually a question in here somewhere? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
What's the question? When did you stop beating your wife? Right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's an assumption in there that any answer is going to look bad on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. And this is why, can we go back to Jiu-Jitsu just for a second, actually? I just can't help it. I just can't help it because I learned so much in Jiu-Jitsu because in Jiu-Jitsu, it's like the thing that I love about Jiu-Jitsu is the turnaround is so fast. It's like you can try something and literally in 30 seconds, you'll know if it works or not. And it's beautiful. And then what happens is I know when you're rolling with a higher belt, you ask them, hey, can you teach me what happened? They're like, yeah, your mistake was like 7 moves ago. You did this and you did this. And then I took advantage here. And it's just like so awesome. It's like what I want to do. Like, I don't know if Chris wants this, but I want this is I want to do some, and maybe it's through debate, but I want to somehow take that concept of jiu-jitsu and apply it to learning new skills. Somehow get to role play it or get to roll around with this idea for a second in a way that's not going to get anybody upset. Like, have you ever had, and I don't know if that only one time I've seen this. Have you ever seen anybody get really mad in jiu-jitsu and it turned into an actual fight? Or martial arts or something?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because it turns into an ego issue. They're mad because egotistically they believe that, they've convinced themselves they're better than their number of repetitions. So they haven't had the repetitions to develop the skill, but in their mind, which, I mean, it's such a fine line because you want somebody to believe in themselves, but sometimes if you haven't done enough repetitions, you're not good at that particular skill you were trying, so you lose. And so I think the ego comes into play when they wanted so bad to win, but they couldn't. So that turns to frustration.
They haven't earned it.
Does that make sense?
They haven't
earned it yet. When I was a kid, I grew up, I learned that the first fight is the mental fight with somebody, having a discussion, right? And if you know how to debate or argue and break somebody's down, what happens when they can't beat you with having a verbal argument? They get angry. They get frustrated. When they get frustrated, then they get physical. And what are they going to do? They're mad at what's ending their debate or their ability. It's your mouth. So that's why they swing on you and try and hit you in the mouth because they're not winning. So they're like, I'm going to get physical. And then that's why I started martial arts actually, was so that if I was talking to somebody and they're not winning the discussion or debate, that they were going to swing on me, I'm like, well, you're going to lose there too. You're not winning with me mentally and you're not winning with me physically.
They're going to,
And I have been caught and punched in the mouth a couple of times, but that's all good.
But this is human nature, right? We want to shortcut the work.
Yeah.
We always want to shortcut the work. And so when we have a big ego, or we have Scott and I have talked about this, when someone has an opinion on the left or the right or on any topic, but they haven't done the reps, the work to figure it out, right? Critical thinking means you learn about something, you understand it, you analyze it, you synthesize it, you build up this body of knowledge and how it works and fits in the world, and then you can have an opinion. But everyone just shortcuts straight to the opinion and doesn't do the work, so they haven't earned their opinion.
Right. Absolutely, they're all experts standing on pedestals that don't exist.
Yeah, and if they're pointing to the right person, they rely on some YouTuber or social media person who says something that they latch onto, but they don't understand. Even if that person is actually valid to have an opinion, they don't understand the facts that went into that person's opinion. They just use that as their launching off point. And really, if you're going to have an opinion, this is why when I talk to someone who has an opinion I disagree with, if they can't substantiate it to any degree, I'm like, well, then why do you have that opinion? What's making you have that opinion if you don't have any thought behind it as to why? Right. Oh, because that guy said it. That famous guy said it. That politician said it.
And the repetitions that support the technique, whether it be arguing or martial arts, the repetitions that support it are different experiences of applying it. Like I said, they say 10,000 times to be an expert. I don't. I say 10,000 times just to get good. Then another 10,000 to be an expert, and then another 10,000 to be sensational. Which means I don't know anybody who's got a full 30,000 repetitions of anything, in all honesty. But I say that because each one of those repetitions is an experience that builds the weight and the character of the answer they're giving, because now they're going to be able to respond faster because what you said is similar to this, and what you said is similar to this. And when I combine those two, this is why I can stand on a firm ground and say, this is why this is what it is.
Yeah, that's how I mean. So there's just no way around doing the work. There's no way around just doing the reps. There's no way. Because I'm constantly looking for ways to shortcut things. There's just no way.
You ever do visualization? Because it's still reps, but it's mental rep versus physical activity rep. And they've done studies on this. Definitely. I've done it. It works for me. As a kid growing up, my dad played college football, Bowling Green State University. And when I was playing sports and my older brother was playing sports, he taught us to visualize things. So he would teach me as a goalie to visualize coming out of the net and how to play the position better. And I had a year where no goals were scored on me at all. Now, it's not only me, it's my other players that help support that, but it helped me play at a higher level because I would just, with my eyes closed, imagine somebody coming down and taking a shot and me stopping the shot. And it improved my skill and ability.
Oh, no.
Here we go again. Are we there? Are we back?
You broke up for a moment. You were imagining someone coming in to take a shot and you froze.
Yeah, and so I was saying that those things, the imaginary repetition was it was me going through my mind. So then when it actually happens, and I'd had countless physical ones in practice and in games, but the visualization one is the icing on the cake that made it easier because I already knew from other experiences what was going to happen, and then just imagining it happening a few times. So I'd sit in the locker room with my eye closed and go. My 2nd degree black belt test, I took it 2 hours before my test, sat down in Seiza and just visualized my test happening and everything that was going to happen. Then I'd get up, practice some, and I'd go back, sit down and visualize again. You want to know that when I got into that test, people would move slow like the Matrix, and I would be like, bam, bam. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then it ended with a technique that I was practicing. I was afraid that I'd get pinned against the wall. And so I'd have to kick somebody in the head. I'm not a guy that can kick to the head. But this guy, Andrew, came up to me and he's got me and I get pinned against the wall. And this kick out of nowhere comes up and catches him in the face. And my instructor's like, Yame. He's like, stop. He goes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And all that happened, if you ask me, because I had just imagined it 2 hours earlier.
Oh my gosh. Wait.
I don't think I get to stays up for 2 hours.
Wait, hang on. I got to dig into this more. Hang on a second, because I want to use this. So right now, probably my most important thing I'm working on is my health. And my number one most important thing is what I put in my mouth, more importantly, what I don't put in my mouth, and then that I go exercise. Those are the two things. So do you think, can I use these visualization techniques to help control what I eat? Do you think? Would that work the same way? Is there any limits to that technique?
We're creating awareness by doing so. So if I was looking at it from a coaching aspect, if you took, let's just say, and it doesn't take a lot of time, Scott, you sit down, comfortable chair, right? Quiet, just visualize. It's going to be hard to stay focused on it, but you're just going to close your eyes and you're going to visually imagine your ingestion state for the next day, for tomorrow. You're going to wake up. Are we still there? You're going to imagine that you're drinking water at the right time. You're eating a smaller meal at the right time. You're having protein. You're having your vitamins. And this is going to happen throughout the day. You're going to imagine and be aware of the portion size that you're having so that you can eat better, and it's all going to be health-wise. Then you're going to imagine, and maybe at the same time, you're going to go, okay, then I'm going to go for a 3-mile walk. And I'm going to be relaxed and have a good time. I'm going to listen to some music or a podcast, hands-on logos that I love, that's going to really make a difference for me. And you're just going to imagine that day, and you're going to make it happen. You do the same thing if you journal. If you took a pad and you wrote the same thing out, you're doing a mental rep, but you're writing it down this time. I'll give you one more on the scenario you gave earlier where you made that call and it's still bothering you. I recommend take a piece of paper and write down what bothered you. Write it down. Sit on it for a couple hours, then take that piece of paper and burn it, and you're done with it. It's all gone.
Oh my God, that's because I've heard about this before, and I just think in my mind just goes, oh, that's just woo woo, da 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 da. Just come on, ignore it, right? But you're telling me there's a lot of value to that.
That's why I was the mental coach at St. John Bosco, because I had kids come up, go, Coach, I'm losing. How do I win? I go, okay, sit down with me, close your eyes. And I would walk them through visualization. Hey, Coach, I get here and then I can't do anything. I go, and you can relate to this in jiu-jitsu because you keep trying the same technique and you lost it at 7 steps ago. What you need to be doing is going, okay, I'm here. This isn't working. How do I transition to a technique that does work?
Yeah.
What can I do from here? This isn't working. Then I got this technique, this technique, this technique. Transition to something better. Improve your position by imagining it. So this kid goes out right after this session. He had like 6 matches he lost. He's like, I got to win. I'm a winner. I'm not a loser. I'm like, all right, just relax. You're going to get out and you're going to find yourself in this position. I want you to imagine what it smells like when you step on the mat and shake hands. I want you to imagine the warmth or the cold of the other guy's hand when you grab it for the handshake. And then the first technique and the takedown and how you're going to get 2 points. And then, and then you might let him up and do it again. And you're just going to imagine everything that happens before it happens. Now you've set this pre-incident into place. And it for the most part, it's going to unfold. The more times you repeat it in your mind, it'll unfold that way. And I want you to not just transition from that point to single technique. I want you to do a rep where you transition to this technique. Then I want you to reset to that same spot you got stuck at. And I want you to transition to 1 or 2 other techniques. Because if you try one, all you got to do is go, I've got to transition to something better. And I have to improve my position. That's it. And you can apply that to everything we've already talked about today.
Have you ever gotten caught where after and I think, Scott, this fits in with what you're talking about. After an incident that didn't go the way you wanted, you get stuck replaying it in your head.
Yes.
Right? It sounds to me almost like you're doing the same thing, but in Brian's way, you'd pull it ahead and you try to influence it by pre-thinking that scenario out and figuring out how you want it to play out so that it plays out as close to that as possible. It's almost like your mind knows what to do, just the order's wrong.
Correct.
My God,
you're
these are like
the problem.
This is amazing. This is like I'm going to call this profound. This is a profound idea.
It is, and I think they've been using it since the beginning of time.
How come I didn't know about this earlier?
Because the
you
people
probably
that
did, you just never recognized it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But let me offer this to you as well, though. It's not a one and done. Like, I tried it, it didn't work. Your commitment to putting in the effort to try this has to be a commitment of, like doing this, being aware whether you're doing it or not, and being aware that you're going to do it every day, 3 times a day for 30 days. Like, you've got to look at, like, how do I create the habit? And you have to give it a chance to grow, and you have to tend to it. So we planted the seed. The seed is that you understand how it works and what to do. Now we're going to make sure that the soil, your brain is the soil. We want to make sure that that's clear, that it understands what it has to do, and it's not going to let anything creep in and diminish what this seed can do. Then you're going to water it by doing it every day, and you're going to let that seed grow, and you're going to see if you can make something that produces fruit at the end of the 30 days, which is going to be the results that you're able to achieve.
Yeah. And that's can I tie this back to the reps? So this is, you're doing the reps. You're doing the reps.
Yes.
Even though you're doing it in your mind, it still is going to apply to the real world in some way. It's going to have some influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what I think you'll find with it, Scott, is that you won't just apply to it, or you just won't apply it to what you're ingesting and doing. You'll start applying it. Let's say you go back and you're doing jiu-jitsu, it'll start applying there. You'll start applying it to other places in your life, other things that you're doing. It's to be honest, you know what it is. Like, so you're machining aluminum, darn well you'd better measure a couple of times before you start cutting.
Oh yeah.
That's all you're doing. You're measuring it in advance, and then the cut is the result.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
So you already know it.
It's like a simulation. It's like you're simulating it, and you can solve all these problems before you actually have to pay the price for it. It's cool, actually.
Right. Have you ever looked up on YouTube how to do something like, okay, I need to accomplish this. I need to see what that looks like before I do it.
Yeah, like so about a million
nowadays
times.
You can look up on YouTube and go, oh, that's how I measure and cut. Now that you got it, now you go to it, it happens quicker because you're not trying to figure it out as much. You've already had the repetitions to support what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So you do know that this works.
So yeah, does part of this? So I think part of this, and this is where I think a teacher or a mentor or a YouTube comes into play, is you don't know what it looks like when things are going well because you haven't done well. So thinking through a scenario like, oh, I'm at this point. What would it look like if things went well here? What would it look like if things went well here? And that, like your earlier point of that's your decision point that goes into the 5 other things, that goes into 5 other things.
Yeah, right.
You start thinking through, this is what I want to happen because that's a good thing. And YouTube helps you figure out, like when I was doing plumbing the other day and I'm like, oh, what's this supposed to look like when I'm welding or soldering pipe together? And I can see it on YouTube. This is what it looks like. So when I do it, I know if it's going bad or going well.
That is awesome. So literally I can go like, okay, wait a minute. I know I want to go to bed at this time. I got to start preparing. I got to brush my teeth. I got to do this thing. And then otherwise, then I can start thinking, oh, I'm watching too much YouTube. So it's like, if I keep doing this, then I'm going to go to bed late, which means I wake up later, which means it messes my whole next day up, which means it's like yeah.
Have you ever had that day where you're like, okay, I've got to be up early. So you lay out your socks, your shoes, your underwear, your clothes, your toiletries, everything's set up. So all you got to do is get up and start doing. This is the same thing.
And there's no thinking anymore. The thinking's pre.
No, you're saving yourself that trouble.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
So Scott and I have been saying that we spent most of our lives thinking. Now it's time to be acting. Less thought, more action.
I think I'm in there too. I overthink a lot of stuff.
That's awesome. That's really good. Well, do we want to keep going? This feels kind of like a good wrap up.
Yeah, is there anything you want to point out for us, or see? We keep forgetting to tell our listeners to put comments in about what we're talked about. If they have any thoughts on any of the topics we brought up, if they want us to go into it more in a future episode. Please comment, subscribe. We get so caught up in talking, we forget to ask the audience to participate, but please do.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
you know what maybe putting in a little spot too. You got to make sure that you're telling people where to find you. Like, hey, here's how you find us. Here's, share with folks. You got to put those out there all the time. I don't know if you do little commercials like that in editing, but you should. Hey, don't forget. Here's how to find us. And
well, where do people find you?
I'm big on Instagram. Coach Brian at AO for Alpha Omega. I'm on there also as Coach Spectacular, which is interesting. I got to tell you the story on that real quick. It's coaching youth basketball in the Catholic Youth Organization, and our color was red. And so my wife has a black belt. Both my sons have black belts. And I show up one day, and I'm older, so I got a little bit of a dad bod going on. And I put on these all black sunglasses, and somebody walks up, and they're like, "Hey, Coach Incredible." Well, you can't be Mr. Incredible. You could be Coach Spectacular. And then they gave me a shirt that has like the, our lion logo on it, but they kind of tried to make it look like the eye from Mr. Incredible or from the Incredibles. So that's what they used to call the whole family. It was like, hey, it's the Incredibles, they're here. So we played into the part a little bit, would show up with red shirts on purpose just to have fun with it. So that's how that kind of led into it. And then the other side of Spectacular was, like a lot of people, we're not always very high on ourselves, and it's taken me a lot of work, a lot of self-belief to develop me into being a more positive character. The nature of the law enforcement job causes you to be very cynical, and then you get bitter, and you just kind of, not that you hate people, but you just hate scenarios and hate everything that's going on. And it's not that so much that you hate, you're like, seriously, people are going to act like this? Can people just act better or be better human beings? So a lot of who I am is because of self-work on, if you ask me how I'm doing, there's a guy that's really big. He's got probably one of the top podcasts in the world, Ed Milet, who's also part of the finance company that I work with. And Ed Milet's fantastic. And he came out of the gym one day, and somebody asked him, like, hey, how was your workout? And he goes, oh, it's good. And he stops and he turns back to this guy that was filming him on a camera. He goes, I'm sorry, that's not me. My workout wasn't good. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was spectacular. I mean, I really got done what I needed to get done. I got more reps than I thought I was going to get. And he had to change his attitude, because good is average. Yeah. Good is average. And if you're going to be average, then that's fine. But if you want to be better than that, you have got to do the self-work of, hey, I'm awesome, amazing, spectacular, fantastic, incredible. And, that's where all of that kind of comes together with it. It's actually on my license plate frame now too, is just to own it. I'm like, I've got to own it. And that's why I use that as one of my Instagram calls. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name, Brian Burdick, and Instagram, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Couple short
awesome. Yeah. If anyone wants to join our Toastmasters group and listen to Brian, he his speeches are incredible, and he always has a positive attitude. So, and honestly, our table topics are fun too. Today was interesting because we did a debate and we had to argue things we didn't agree with. But
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'd like to say on that too, though, it's not just me; it's these two guys. Scott's got a lot to offer on Toastmasters. Chris, you make things extremely plausible and sensible in a lot of ways. We've got a guy named Jamar, which is fantastic. A guy named Dan Eisen. Like, this is a mastermind group in Toastmasters. You can't help but get better by being a member of it. And I think I think when I say putting in the work, it's definitely something that has caused me to take ownership of of one of my thoughts and the way I speak. And I think that's coalesced with the attitude I have on trying to be a better version of myself. And I owe a lot to Toastmasters for that.
Yeah, so Toastmasters is awesome. And if I can pitch our club, we have a very, very high functioning club as well, too. Very high functioning club.
Indeed.
Yeah, I always tell everyone it's one of the best run organizations, or our group is one of the best run ones I've seen. Everyone's always impressed by the fact that we've got an agenda, we follow it, we're pretty close to it on time all the time, and and people step up, right? We ask them people to do things, and they step up and they do it.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That's exactly.
I think that's evident by some of the guests you've had on that have been on from other clubs, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you guys actually do what we're supposed to do?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yep. All right. Any other last things we should talk about? I mean, I think we're at a couple hours overall, so we're pretty good.
It's been a blast. I really appreciate it. I've had a lot of fun. Learned a lot
Good.
just now from you guys. It's amazing.
You know, I hope at some point people will take the time to listen to the entire podcast. And it is long. A couple hours is a long time, but
yeah.
I think if you follow along in the thinking, we are all over the place. But if you follow along in the thinking, you see how we're reasoning, how we're trying to figure things out. And if we are arguing a point that's different than our viewpoint, you know, we need to get better at explaining how our thoughts are working and how I'm building the opposite viewpoint of something, and make it clear to the listener. I think when we talk to people who already think like us, they get it. The main thing is I would really like other people to understand how this thinking works, and if it's something that they can adopt and use in just navigating society, navigating the world of information we live in, and being able to not get triggered by everything that's out there, and come out, you know, as a more balanced person. That would be my goal in all of this. So I'm hoping that more and more people can pick up on that. And, you know, having you come in here and explain and give people advice on, you know, how to grow and become more wholesome people, I guess. Wholesome, is that the word I want? But yeah, I think that's an important thing. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Brent. This is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Greatly appreciated.
All right.
All right, I'm stopping the recording now.